Today we're going to be talking about or reacting to Yatsa88 talking with Jeannie Mai on Instagram. The comments are turned off because they're going to be doing some pandering. They will be doing some pandering. Black Lives Matter has turned into Black Lives Marketing. They're going to do some pandering. They're going to say some things that can be perceived as offensive in nature, and the comments are turned off so they don't have to actually see what people are saying, and so that other people who are viewing it can't see what others are saying, because they're going to do a lot of pandering, and it's okay. We're just here to react and here to discuss things that we can have as positive takeaways that we can use in our everyday life. So welcome.
These people don't mean offense. They only speak what they see. And so somebody has to come by and say, actually, Asians come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and experiences, dialects, styles of talking. Have you seen, like, you got a girl from the Bay, so you're going to have somebody who speaks a different way here. But have you met an Asian girl from the Valley? Have you met an Asian girl that's coming from Alaska? I mean, they're all different. I've met Asian girls that live in Colombia and have a beautiful accent and speak Espanol at the same time. So it's like, you know, we have to broaden the horizon there. And then I think the second thing is, when I was starting out in my career, if I met another Asian, and because it's only it's me, Lucy Liu, Lisa Ling, and now Aquafina. Like, there's not many, right? Yes, we love Aquafina, but at the time there weren't any at all. So if I met another Asian whose job was to cast for an Asian role, they always wanted me to play the most Asian style of Asian possible, which means I'd lighten my skin. If I want the job, I lighten my skin, I lose maybe about 15 more pounds, and I would dye my hair black and look very, very like, actually, probably the Taiwanese version of Asian, or maybe like the
stereotype of the...
Yes.
Yeah, so everybody goes through stereotypes when trying to make it big in Hollywood. And that's because a lot of us don't own any industries to compete with things that are established. So, for example, even though there's numerous teams in the NBA, there's only one NBA. Even though there's numerous teams in the NFL, there's only one NFL. Even though there's several different studios, there's only one Hollywood. We don't have our own industries. We don't have multiple industries. So whatever someone is saying you got to do, you pretty much have to take until enough people who are prestigious and have clout come forward and complain, and then all of a sudden things start to change. And you saw that with the Me Too era. So the casting couch, people being stereotypical as far as what they want you to be in regards to getting a role. A lot of people knew about that, but it wasn't until people who were seen as prestigious and enough of them came forward with the Me Too, that's when things started to change with the casting couch, and the conversation of sexual coercion was brought to the forefront. What Jeannie Mai really should be doing is focusing on her and her people getting industry so they can continue to do what they want to do as far as entertainment without having to be stereotypes. But the problem is, a lot of people start making money and they like the money they're making, and they're more focused on continuing to make the money by being a stereotype as opposed to having power, because changing an establishment that you're in, you're not going to be able to necessarily do it by leaps and bounds. But if you have something to compete with it, they'll have no choice but to change, because they're starting to lose their talent. That's where true power comes in, is competing with the entire industry as opposed to sitting around and complaining about a small aspect of it.
The very Chinese ding, 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 like that, the shiny Oriental fabrics and all that. And I'm like, man, that's crazy, because if you don't call on me, you're going to pass the role on to like a few other Asian girls, and that's all we have. Because in Hollywood, if you were an Asian woman that was going to take a role, you have to look the stereotypical exotic, by the way. That's a whole nother thing. They want the one that looks sexy, the one that like makes, brings dollars to the box office because you may be a freak, And so, yeah, so I think specific Asians, I remember casting directors asking me, okay, is this skin color only for summer? Are you willing to put on longer eyelashes? Can we straighten your nose more? Because a really high nose is really desirable. Dye my hair jet black, or wear a wig. So things like that. And then from non-Asian people, I would get more of, so this part, if I'm going to really dive deep, because I've thought about this, and this is why I agree with you, Yusai. This time has been very reflective for me. I remember that my first few jobs were based off of the sexier version of me. So, for example, there was this one job, MTV. I did an audition, and it would have been the first on-camera job that would have allowed me to get to be a part of SAG-AFTRA if I took the job. It was with an actor named Frankie Muniz, and he did a show where he was basically a race car driver, and because he races cars, and he needed two women beside him to just be his hosts, right? So one was a tall, gorgeous Caucasian girl, long legs, bouncy boobs, the whole thing. And then they were like, okay, and you're going to be our exotic Oriental. And I remember, Yusai, I had a moment of crossroads where I could make my way up, and I did B. Now, I'm gonna tell you this because I have a love-hate relationship with that memory. That was one of a few jobs. Thank God I never slept with anybody. Thank God I never went that route. But I absolutely...
Well, so it's good you didn't sleep with anybody, but you still gave in to the stereotype. So you helped perpetrate that culture by you saying, yes, I'll do it, even though you feel bad about it, even though it's a stereotype. Yes, you're getting paid. Yes, you get your foot in the door, but you're still supporting that stereotype. It's no different than sleeping with someone because a negative stereotype's a negative stereotype. And what's shameful is that Youthsaw and Jeannie Mai, they're both kind of joking about it because they know it's true. They really can't come forward and tell their truth and change things because they want to keep their paycheck. They want to keep their fame. And that's the reason why a lot of these institutions are the way they are, because they dangle the carrot in front of you and they make you chase the carrot because they know you want the carrot. And if you go to try to buck the system, that carrot gets taken from you and now you're broke, penniless, and the phrase is you'll never work in this town again. That's why it's very important that we create industries to compete with the established industries and focus more on controlling the narrative, controlling the image, controlling the business, as opposed to somewhat accepting the scraps they give us. Yetsa and Jeannie Mai, they're successful, they're well known, they don't have to deal with that anymore, but there's people who are coming up in the ranks who are still having to deal with it, and they have to sleep with people. So the real question is Jeannie Mai not only talking about it publicly like she is on the show, but is she also doing things to help those who've come behind her, which is establishing production companies, establishing and helping out directors who are coming up in the ranks to be able to start to foster the inception of an industry that will focus more on the content of your character as opposed to being a stereotype. And that's for everybody. Everyone should be thinking in the season of Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, everyone should think, what am I doing to bring about change? Yes, I'm marching in the streets. No, I don't like the injustice, but what am I doing to change things? Because if you're not doing anything to change it and you're kind of passive, then you're a part of the problem.
We did agree to some of the stereotypes that were asked of me, because number one, I felt every audition room I walked in, it was all white faces at the time. This is like back in 2000, like maybe 5, right? 2004 to 2005. All white faces. So I thought, if somebody's going to learn about what an Asian sister is like up in here, it's going to be me. I'm not going to leave the room while these white girls get all these jobs when I know I could get the job, because I am attractive, I am smart, I am well-spoken, I am professional, I am talented. I can get the job just like these women, but you're going to actually see a different colored perspective when you hire me. So that's one reason why I took the job. So that's my love side of it, is I represented to get to where I am now. But then my hate side of it, Yusai, is that I realize that part of being Asian, especially being Asian American, is that there's something in my culture that has taught me, maybe specifically my Vietnamese culture. I feel I've been taught to just go with the flow. Don't argue.
We all feel that way. Well, we're all coming up in the ranks, starting from scratch. We all kind of go with the flow, look the other way, take comments, take jokes. And in knowing what we've experienced, that's why we somewhat owe it to ourselves to create something for people who are behind us to come through and have their career, have their spotlight, have their opportunity. And also we make more money by that. We make more money by being on the ownership side of the table as opposed to being on the side that we were on when we were powerless. So this is very good points to illustrate the need to own industries, own businesses, and control more of the wealth, in addition to being able to control the narrative.
Argue. Don't be the one to cause this. Right. Don't be difficult. Don't be difficult. And I think it has to do with the fact that my parents immigrated here. Both of them had to escape Vietnam, communist circumstances, tiptoe into America to be like, guys, do you mind if I just squeeze in between, you guys, and let me just make a place? And so you saw, honestly, when I was growing up, I was always afraid of being deported. I had this, even though I'm American, I'm born on American soil, but my parents made me feel like, don't let the cops come and take us. Don't let them make us go back, because they're all refugees. So the mentality is, we don't belong here. So we're just going to do what we're supposed to do, make our money, take care of our family, and don't make any noise. Don't get arrested. Don't get crazy with the law, so that they don't make us go back. And so somewhere that ingrained in me all the way till I was older. And then when it came to jobs where somebody would offend me, I was hustling. So I went one route, but the other side where I felt offended, I didn't speak up. When
I was growing up, a lot of my family members were Americans. We don't have to worry about being deported or anything, but we were taught by our elders, what goes on in the house stays in the house. Don't call the police. Snitches get stitches. Don't make any waves. And it was all about just blending in, keeping your head down, because when the police come, they're going to do something bad to us. If you're experiencing something negative, like someone's touching you, you're being bullied, it was like, well, we all have gone through it. So stop complaining about it. Just deal with it, because we ain't got no money and we don't have no time to be dealing with nothing, because we black. We ain't nothing. We ain't never gonna be nothing.
And this led to many problems, not just within racism, but I was sexually abused as a kid. I definitely was offended and absolutely inappropriately approached when I was getting up in the business. Absolutely had my even run-ins with, people like the Harvey Weinsteins, because they're all over. Thankfully, I never was placed in a more dangerous circumstance than just the inappropriate behavior. But even then, I never said anything, Yusai. And so now today, here's the crazy thing. So now today, as
this sounds more like a Me Too story as opposed to equality. Sounds like Jeannie Mai should be sounding the alarm of the different creeps that she had to deal with to prevent other women or girls from having, or even boys from having to deal with these creeps. I think she should name names and get justice, especially the whole Me Too thing, because even though you yourself had inappropriate, let's say, touching or language, that same person who you're just kind of like, I don't have to deal with them anymore, I'm good, they may be doing more to someone else.
My black brothers and sisters out there are hurting and are over it, hurting over it, and just are ready for this country to make the necessary changes they need to make.
So now it kind of takes a more pandering turn. Jeannie Mai was just talking about her plight, her experience, and Yusai was agreeing with her. This was kind of more of like a Asian American situation, but now it's quickly being turned into Black Lives Matter. Like it literally was like a hard turn. There wasn't much of a transition. And I'm not saying that what Jeannie Mai is saying is incorrect or false, because it's good to support someone else's plight or a plight. You just told us 7 minutes of issues you've gone through when we first started watching. Now you're quickly turning to Black Lives Matter. Is it Black Lives Matter marketing? What's the point of this transition to something that you can support but you didn't experience, like you just got through talking about?
I'm furious and I'm angry and I'm like, wow, I'm fighting and standing up more for my black brothers and sisters than I even would my own race. But when I look at it, I realize I realize that we don't have the same type of connection within all of our races. I don't think Japanese people would stand up for Filipinos. I don't think Mongolian would stand up for Chinese. Like, we all kind of stick to our own race. And yes, the dialects make it hard to kind of, stand up for one another. But we are all we have. Yeah. The Asian American race is beautiful, and we worked so hard to get here. And if anybody knows about racism, we understand what it's like to be oppressed and what it's like. Now, I'm not saying it's the same experience. Of course, never that. But I'm just saying, like, we of all people should understand how we need to ally for each other. But if we haven't done it together, how do we know how to do it outside?
I so appreciate you sharing this, because this has been my struggle for weeks after weeks. In the beginning, we have beautiful, fun conversation on Let's Talk, and then as the Black Lives...
So it's definitely a different struggle because there weren't race riots. So the Asian Americans, they really haven't had to deal with race riots. A lot of them immigrated after the civil rights era. So them as a people, they still have an attachment to where they came from. Even though they were escaping communism, they still have people that they know about. They still have roots. We're not going to go into struggle Olympics saying my plight's worse than yours because of XYZ. If the conversation is going to be about Asian Americans and their struggle, I think that should be the only thing that's there, instead of trying to intertwine it with Black Lives Matter. Because this movement, even though it's Black Lives Matter and the name is Black Lives Matter, the movement, the idea, the struggle, it's been going on for over 100 years after Emancipation Proclamation. It's somewhat disingenuous to even mention Black Lives Matter in a conversation when you're talking about struggles of being Asian American, growing up and having to take on stereotypes to get roles. That seems like that's the only thing that you've really talked about and mentioned. So to equate a race of people being suppressed by government, racist groups, laws, it just seems kind of disingenuous.
Movement happened as Asian for Black Lives is important. I went through the same, I'm still going through it. I go through these horrible images of Asian people being beaten up just 3-4 weeks ago wearing masks. I walked down the street with mask on, people practically spit on me. And now, in this day, it's crazy. And I had posted on Instagram before, I try to not perpetuate the fear, but try to educate. And the DM that comes in are so insanely crazy. I didn't know when to share, how to share. But when Black Lives Matter happened, the movement started pushing, when the agents started standing up for the Black Lives Matters, I had to take a pause. I had to figure out, where do I stand? Because where were the community that I value and love, who have helped me build my career? I always said, Black community built my career.
Okay, there are a lot of immigrants, foreigners. They've moved into Black communities and they've prospered because we've supported them. And it's a shame because even to this day, right now with me talking, I think that there's more Black people supporting non-Black businesses than Black businesses. Where you spend your money is where you spend your money. I'm not here to tell you what to do or what to say, but I will say that I think it's great that he acknowledged that and he's supporting Black Lives Matter because he knows his customers who are supporting him are going through this movement because of what happened with George Floyd, but it's also intertwined with other injustices. So I appreciate him acknowledging that his customer base, the core of his customer base, and even Jeannie Mai, that their customers are suffering. So they're standing with their customers in support of them because we support them. That's a good show of goodwill. They could do more, but I think that's a good start.
And I'll share some story with that, but I did not know how to be. So I began to call Miss J. I literally called my Black friends. It sounds so ignorant. I had to call my Black friends.
It's good to call someone who has skin in the game when it comes to Black Lives Matter, the protest, so you understand what you can do and what you should not do, because it's good to be involved and go along with the way as opposed to thinking you're helping and you're in the way. So I think it's good that you called and you just asked questions just so you could be more informed.
And check in with them and said, what do I do? And it wasn't until I talked to Margaret Cho and Lisa Ling, who I absolutely respect, and they just said, they will. But you got to do what you need to do, what's right, but they will be there. This is the time for solidarity. This is the time that we will be there. No other time better than now. And in ways to forgive and forget, right? And I don't want to forget, so I had to learn how to change myself.
Yes.
And my producer, Trevor, is listening now. Every day he has to remind me, let it go. I had a call the other day casting for a magazine, and I will not mention names. I was so shocked, the privileged attitude of asking for pay when it's editorial. And this is somebody I respect truly in my heart, because the public...
This is going back to what I was saying earlier. People aren't going to just give you stuff. You have to give them a reason, and usually that's with competition, which is why it's very important to have industries and have businesses, people who support your self-interest in key positions, if not yourself. Because if not, when asking for more pay, the people who are paying you are going to be like, nah, you want more pay? I want more pay. I can't get more pay, so why should you? And that goes with the gatekeepers. Even though you're worth more than what you're making and you're asking for more but less than what you're worth, they're like, no, why would I pay you, let's say $2 for something that I'm currently employing you to do for 50 cents? It all goes into having industries, having businesses, being able to negotiate what you're worth, perhaps even taking a pay cut to position yourself to get experience so that later on down the road, you can ask for more money. And if the answer is no, then you can go somewhere else because you have accolades. So you do have choices when navigating these systems. But I think the end goal is what's important. Like, what do you want? What is your long-term goal? If your long-term goal is not anything associated with control, ownership, industry, generational wealth, then you're pretty much running your race on a treadmill.
This thing that because she's wearing few outfits of this one brand that's supporting this issue, that then she needs to be paid. And I literally went, do you guys not understanding that nobody's shooting? Nobody can even be creative. We're asking you to be part of the creative force to bring out there, and you're asking to be paid? I just said, you know what? Then it's not the right project. No, I know. And
exactly. Walk away.
This is what white privilege is. I'm sorry. This time, now, if they hurt me, they'll never work with me again. This PR agency will hate me. Fine. Because voice needs to be heard. Wake up and figure out what is going on. Because we're all going through this. We're all going through it in our own time. Yeah. And I hung up that phone. I cried because I was crying for the fact that this is somebody I respect so much.
Oh no!
And I cried to know that all these years I'm fighting for colored people on the cover of magazine, but this
colored people. People kill me when they say colored people, because colored people is everybody. Everybody is quote unquote a color. So you should really just say everybody. Colored people just sounds like it's code, especially when you're in America, because in the past, colored people was people who were black. If he's referring to everyone as in everybody's a color, that just sounds like weird. It's almost like the talking points are now based off of like 1950s. It just comes across as offensive.
Particular issue was right for this actress. And I fought for that moment for you. And then the dollar sign is what we're going to take the opportunity away from your voice and the voice to share. It blew my mind. But this is what's happening. This happens all the time in our industry. And I hope the industry started to change. I saw the open letter for Essence magazine. I was with them for 2.5 years. So I have my own experience with them. And I see the black on black hates too. And all that stuff.
There's actually a lot of black on black hate. I'm glad he acknowledged that. There are people who just want you to focus on police who are white, but it's a lot of issues that we have. You know, look at Chicago, look at East St. Louis. There's a lot of issues that we have, and the fact that people who are not black, that they're referencing those issues, is more of a reason for all of us to address those issues and actively work on eliminating those issues, even if it means working with law enforcement to get people locked up. Because if you sit back and make excuses and you're not actively trying to clean up your communities, then you get what you get.
I'm so happy that's coming to the surface. A lot of it, I'm going to come to that surface with it. I have inappropriate stuff that somebody's going to bring out. And I ask people to bring it to me, so allow me to at least apologize, allow me to make it right. But this is definitely the time of, I feel like a freaking tuna being shaped into raw sushi for everybody to eat up to, you know? And I had to come to terms and say, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah. But part of what your story you're telling me about Asians and competing in the business, and I'll tell you a funny story, because when I saw you on E! and Style Network, you were doing makeover shows.
Yeah.
And I was then at the time starting to hit the reality TV circuit as a creative director for Top Model. Okay. So I had many interviews with E! And my goal was to be on the show with you, because I find being next to Asian people is more powerful. It's like opening a Chinese restaurant. You open a Chinese restaurant next to a Chinese restaurant. You know, open it somewhere that there's no other Chinese restaurant. And this is literally, I was told, we don't need.
Nothing wrong with working with people who have like-minded stuff. I think everybody should do that. I don't think it should be based off of race or ethnicity, but I mean, if you're able to do it, then cool. But the fact that he said that he wished he could do it, but was not able to do it, shows that he had to get to a certain level before he was able to have this interview with her. He was wanting to be next to her all the time, but he couldn't because he wasn't on the same level as Jeannie Mai. That's very important because a lot of people are like, we got to stick together, but you're not on the same level as someone, and now you're upset because they don't want to work with you, but you're not there. You still need time to get to where that person is, because if you're not on the same level, what ends up happening is you can indirectly or directly hold someone back, and that's not fair to people who are successful and have resources. Now, if that person becomes your mentor, or you get mentors and improve your craft and get to a particular level where you can start working with certain people, then great. But I think it's somewhat a false way of thinking that you can work with whoever just because of ethnicity or race.
Another Asian person, the host is already Asian. And it wasn't because of it wasn't.
You're kidding me.
And the people who said that are no longer there. So guys, don't come for me at E. For
more reason why you have to have industry, because you should be able to speak freely about what happened to you as opposed to being fearful of backlash. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. They're gone. The people who did that stuff are gone. I think he was lying. I think the people are still there. He just wants to still have his opportunity. He wants to be able to throw his stone and hide his hand. Just my opinion.
Hired to host for a show for them. And I did all these readings, and I got feedback, and I went back in again. They said to me, do you know Iron Chef Japan? I go, yeah. Can you be more like that guy and go, hello, welcome to the show? Literally, I stood there.
Wow.
You know, it's funny because I used to see people on television and in movies acting like that, and I never stopped to think that that was stereotypical, that they were asked to play a stereotype and that was actually offensive. To be honest, I never knew that. And that's because the industry only showed them as a stereotype, so you just kind of assumed that was normal. It's not until you actually start to meet people in real life to where you can get a realized or a real version of someone. It's very sad. It's the reason why we have to focus more on getting industries, creating industries, owning businesses, owning the narratives. That way we can portray ourselves the way that we want to be portrayed, as opposed to someone else telling us how we need to act, how we need to talk, how we need to think.
Oh,
I walked away from that job.
Good.
yeah, hell yeah.
Got picked up.
Right.
I never got picked up, so you guys were wrong. I literally went, "Oh, what? And I don't know how many times people say, well, you're just not gay enough, or you're not Asian enough. And that's why I love Singapore.
And we've heard that type of thing where someone will say you're not black enough. This shows you that whatever you're experiencing, you're not alone.
And I celebrate them because I created a show called Street to Kitchen Asia because I want to celebrate the food. I want to celebrate the culture of Taiwan. Yeah. And I went to Singapore and got the sponsorship out of there. Yeah. And we got made. It was on Net Geo. It's on Fox. It's and that's like one of my proudest moments, because then I actually realized how important my community is. Because growing up, I'm sure you go.
It's kind of like they're celebrating where they are now and their accomplishments. What they're failing to realize is the true accomplishment is having industries to compete against the industry, against the business that facilitated discrimination against you. That's what you should celebrate. And see, both of them, they can literally on this live stream talk about making steps to see change, to help out those who are coming up through the ranks, own it, and make more money. Because you make more money by being an owner as opposed to being a high-paid employee.
You hide your Asianness, right? You're like, oh, maybe you see me as white so I can be part of this opportunity that's out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of time is what ends up happening. They're seen as white or whiteness because of the physical features they have. Even though you could say that they're mongoloid features, they still closely resemble the Caucasoid features. So they kind of get passable if you lighten their skin and act a certain way. They could be seen as passable. So they still are supporting by their features, by their silence, and by the fact that they're not working towards creating something that will allow them to be themselves in an industry as opposed to having to be what someone else wants them to be. That's kind of why people have started saying the phrase white silence is violence, because being passive or being a naysayer, playing devil's advocate towards people who are progressing to have racial equality or to be anti-racist, you're in the way if you're not supporting the way.
You Americanize it.
And I went through this long period of time wondering, okay, I always going to have this Taiwanese screwed up accent because I lived so many different places. My grammar is never going to be correct because I'm dyslexic. I read teleprompters backwards. And that's always been like my scare. But funny thing is, what I learned is I went to Singapore, everybody has an accent. They're also diverse, and they embrace all of them. And I couldn't be more proud that I needed to go back to Asia to learn that I'm valued.
Wow.
You know? And you were part of that journey, because when I saw you went back to Asia to work, I was blown away, because you know how many people who become successful in America who's Asian that actually would go back to Asia and work.
Yeah, not many. Not many.
Not many. So I thank you for that, because you have been such inspiration to me, not just in just in your actions. You know, in your action, what you're doing, your dating life, your pureness, and that's why I really so proud of the real, because you keep it real there so much, and the diversity of.
I kind of disagree with that, because Jeannie Mai said that, just paraphrasing, but she was saying how she likes her white meat as a main course and dark meat on the side, meaning she'd only would marry a white man but would have relations with a black man. And here she is dating young Jeezy, and they're talking about marriage because it benefits her career by doing that.
I said yes. Jay had planned to propose to me in Vietnam. The reason why he brought Vietnam to me is because he didn't want the quarantine to stop the fact that he wanted to propose to me. Jay's dad said something really dear.
There's nothing wrong with having your soulmate with you.
My mom said something that really shocked me.
Most of my friends, they're so happy and surprised. You know why? Because GJ came all the way to Houston to come to see me. Why he respect the parent like that, and why he respect our culture like that, it make me cry.
Jay had done the most important thing in my culture, which is to pay respect to the mom and the dad, but also give them time to say, if you're not okay with this, then I'm not going to propose until you are.
He's handsome, he's intelligent, he have an open heart, 10 star.
I said yes.
They may be in love, but it's just that these are kind of words that she said on the reel, and you never really know not only if she's keeping it real, but how much of it is opportunity. Even this conversation, pandering to Black Lives Matter. How much of this conversation is truly genuine? That's why when you listen to these interviews and you hear people, you got to break it down, use proper context, and you got to learn from it and understand exactly where people truly are, not just where they're saying they are. Just because someone's out there marching with you doesn't necessarily mean that they're marching for the same thing.
Conversation that you bring and the candidness that you are here today. It's what I hope that Asian people can learn, that we don't have to be invisible, and we should never be invisible. You know?
And this is major of you. Thank you for doing this IG Live. Like, thank you for allowing us to have a window into experience, perspective, because no Asian walk is the same, which is why we need to always come with open ears, always be open to listen. I mean, right now is the best time to learn the art of listening. But the art of listening is truly dropping everything that you have ever thought, or what you're doing in 5 minutes, your schedule, what phone you're texting and checking on. No, it's drop everything to listen to a person's experience. Feel the way their eyes change when they tell you about the different moments of their failures and their upcomings. You know, make sure that you ask the right questions to get people to really open up and share what it is you want them to know about them. And this means especially for people of color, especially for Black friends, you need to, as you did, reach out. And I think it's one thing to ask, what can I be doing? But it's also another to just be asked, how are you? How are you doing? And just check in and don't put any pressure already on Black people to have to tell you the things that you should go do yourself. You should go and learn yourself. You don't ask.
I like how Jeannie Mai, she's right on script, switching the conversation to Black Lives Matter. If you replace Black Lives Matter with Asian community or Asian American, it'll fit the rest of the narrative as far as the conversation, which is why I say it's kind of pandering. If this is supposed to be about Black Lives Matter, that's all they would be talking about. But because they're talking about their own plight and is switching to Black Lives Matter as if supporting it, it just kind of comes across as this is Black Lives marketing.
Ask your friends for book recommendations and what documentaries you need to watch. Your ass is grown. You can go and do that yourself. These people are living this experience and you expect them to now like go relive it in order to teach your ass. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So it is really great to have social media right now. Like Instagram has been so helpful to, post and share beautiful speeches by James Baldwin, and the Angela Rye's in the world are so great, and Charlemagne the God is doing an amazing job to help educate us. Amanda Seales, she's also wonderful in teaching us how to understand the times and what we can be doing out here, and adding some humor as well, because we do have to also laugh.
A really great source is ADOS101.com. That's ADOS101.com. It breaks down a lot of stuff. There's books you can read, there's websites you go to, there's videos you can watch, there's people you can talk to, but a really good site that has a lot of concise information is ADOS101.com.
While we go and still fight for Breonna Taylor's family.
Absolutely.
And, so yeah, it's a lot going on, but so much to do. Nobody should be bored right now.
Well, with earlier you said that we have this distance thing that we're supposed to keep 6 feet apart, and I've been championing this over and over. I said if you're in 6 feet distance, you can actually share kindness and love, and that's more meaningful than the 6 feet apart from each other. And that goes from everywhere, from the food industry to the fashion industry to the television industry. I think this is definitely the time that I feel that I'm the most naive and at the same time most open and wanting to learn. And yes, at times I'm beating myself up. And I said this over and over. I hope the pendulum does swing so far that when I show up on every set, I'm asked to shoot a color person, and I'm asked to shoot color. I didn't say black, I say color, because they're all range of color. And I hope that editor-in-chief in positions are replaced with people with more diverse ideas. I don't care about what color she is that gets hired. I care about the idea that's in behind those eyes, and actually stop perpetuating the notion that that's only the light color celebrity can be on cover of magazines who happen to be black. And I'm saying that because you guys are listening, or editors are listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because we have these discussions all the time. And we have discussions about lightening the skin a little bit when we do the cover, or darken the skin a little bit because, we want to talk to this audience. Let people be real. Let's get real, seriously. And we can get into this to the point that I'll start screaming because, in our industry.
Oh, I know how passionate you are,
We live in this bubble, and I'm so glad somebody's bursting that bubble for me to say, you know what, if you don't like it, say it. Are you wanting to lose job over it? You better want to, because that's what's going to make a difference.
Whoa. So he's telling people to lose their jobs, to fight for diversity, to fight for what's right. But Jeannie Mai and Yutsal, both of them have said in their stories of coming up, neither one of them really turned down opportunity. They pretty much leaned in to get to where they were, and now they're at this current position. You might have to swallow the red pill and understand that if you want to come up in someone else's or something else's industry or business, or even whatever is going on, you might have to swallow your pride and do things you're not comfortable in doing to move up. And then when you get into a key position to where you can enact change, then you can start to slowly change the environment to make it better for those who come after you. But to say turn down an opportunity, stand on your convictions, stand on your principles, but neither one of them did that. I'm not telling you to sell out, but you need resources. And it's very difficult to start a business, start an industry, do much of anything without resources. So you may end up, if you're starting from scratch, you may end up having to do what you got to do, fall on your own sword a couple of times to be able to get the resources, get the position, get the recognition, get what you need to change a system or create another one to compete with the system that may have discriminated against you to get the justice that you most deserve. So I think it's very disingenuous for them to tell people to stand up for what's right and do what you got to do when they themselves came up doing the opposite of what they're preaching.